Hello and welcome to the show. Today we have a Gran Turismo 6 challenge. This was submitted quite a while ago and I apologise, I've been meaning to do this, just other things have come up and I haven't got around to filming this one, but we are going to be doing it today. And how this challenge is going to work is I'm going to be taking a race car. In this case it is a Golf Mark IV GTI Touring Cup trophy car. I'm not sure, I can't really remember. There's many different variations. It's basically Gran Turismo take the Golf and modify it a bit to various regulations for race cars, or it might even be a real racing series. I'm sure they race Golfs. I'm not sure if this is based on a real race series. I don't know. So yeah, we're going to be taking these racing cars. We're going to drive for 10 laps around Deep Forest Raceway. Track I quite like. I do like this place. It's sort of short, fast, flowing, my kind of track really. A little bit bumpy in some places. May have run a little bit wide there and just about got away with it on that section. And then, yeah, ignore that bit. That never happens. You didn't see it. So yeah, we're going to be driving for 10 laps and we'll take the fastest lap from then. And then what we're going to try and do is beat that lap time by using the standard road car. We're going to kind of budget build the road car for the same amount of money it costs to buy this race car. So in this case, the racing Golf cost 156,500 credits, and then we're going to take that money and then try and build a road car version to be as quick around a lap of this track. I don't really know. I don't know. Didn't really know if it would work. Didn't really know how close it would be. I expected it not to work at all, but I thought I'd give it a go and see what happens. It sounded interesting to try and find out. Now, we are also going to be keeping the tyres the same between vehicles. This only affects this first run because for whatever reason, this Golf race car is on comfort soft tyres. I don't know. I'm not sure why that is. The tyres make such a huge difference on here. If you're running racing tyres, there's a massive performance advantage to you. So we're going to be keeping the tyres the same. As it's only really affecting. Only massively affects this first round. I'm not sure why this Golf is on silly wonky tyres. As a car to drive though, this is pretty good. It's a little bit expensive for what it is. It's not particularly fast. It lacks straight line speed. It's fairly good through the corners, but it's running on normal road tyres, which means that it is a bit understeery and you can't carry as much speed as I would ideally like. So sort of an overall lap time is, I wouldn't say not impressive, but it's not as fast as it could have been for the race car. The road going version starts off at 31,500 credits, which gives me an awful lot of money for upgrading it. Now, of all of the vehicles that I have here today, this was the most likely to be able to compete. The racing version costs quite a lot of money and isn't actually particularly fast. So yeah, of all of the cars, I was feeling this one might actually work. As far as upgrades wise go, I have racing brakes, I have the soft racing suspension, opted for the soft suspension because this is a rather bumpy track, the full weight reduction, the stage 3 engine upgrade, the 5-speed gearbox and the racing turbo, like the stage 3 turbo or whatever. All of that put together comes to 143,000 credits. Now, we may have understeered again. I was having problems with that corner with these cars on the normal tyres. Now, with all those upgrades put on, this car did a lap time of 133.1 and the race car did a lap time of 133.0. So these are pretty much identical speed-wise. They get their speed, though, very, very differently. Like, I could have spent a bit more money, could have got like racing exhaust, racing cat, and it would have then made it faster. But for 143,000 credits, you'll basically have the same car. However, they get speed in a very, very different way. And that is, this car is very quick in a straight line. The gearbox in this vehicle, the standard gearbox, is terrible. Going to run a little bit wide again, but with the 5-speed gearbox, it's actually very, very good gear ratios on here. It's good for this track anyway. It's topping out at the end of the straights. I wouldn't want to race it on anywhere longer though. This car gains all its speed on acceleration and straight line. It's terrible through the corners. The race car was quite nice, but this thing on comfort soft tyres is not much fun. It's really very, very tricky to drive. Interestingly, if I did go for race tyres, I would put racing hard tyres on here. I could build a car that would go a second a lap faster than the race car for 80,000 credits. So yeah, you can, with the Golf, you can go faster for a bit less, and you can go faster for a bit less even with keeping the tyres the same. Up next, we have got the Honda Integra touring car variation. A fairly common sight a few years back in the British Touring Car Championship. Did they run these? They might have run these in the World Touring Car. I'm sure they ran all sorts of touring car categories. There are Integras in. Not my favourite. of the touring cars if you like. However, this is very, very cheap. This is 75,000 credits. That is not a lot of money at all for a car that is this fast. This is a really very, very fast car. I was amazed actually how quickly this will go around this track. I'm not sure how much horsepower some of these race cars have. The game gets a little bit confused and just has question marks on some of them. But yeah, this is a really, really quick car. It is a lovely car to drive as well. It has so much grip. Despite the fact it is front-wheel drive, you can turn it into a corner and boot it, and it will probably be fine unless you're being a real idiot. All of these cars are being driven without traction control, I should point out as well, and without ABS. Yeah, you can just turn and floor it, and the car will just grip to the road. It is a really nice car to drive. This can carry so much speed through the corners. It is it's quite incredible how much how much speed it can carry through some of the sections on this track. It will struggle in a straight line though. It doesn't quite have the straight line speed, the top speed. But on a track like this, you don't need too much straight line speed. Also, I should point out, you may have seen me there slightly run over the curb. If the lap is an invalidated lap, I'm not going to count it. So if I make a mistake on that part of the track, it doesn't matter because that lap won't be counting. We move to the road version. It's always going to be challenging with this, as the road version doesn't have a lot of money to play with. There was also to be another problem that I didn't foresee happening on Gran Turismo, and that is me rolling of cars in odd places. Yeah, that surprised me. That I don't know. That's not a particularly big curb. I don't know why this car rolled. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. It crashed though. As I was saying though, the lack of money to upgrade with this car was going to be a bit of a problem. The Integra race car is very cheap at 75,000 credits. The Integra road version is 25,900, which does not give me very much money when it comes to upgrading. So, the first thing you're going to have to do with these is the racing tyres. That's another 15,000 gone already. This was still very early on, so that was me taking a bit too much speed through the corners. But yeah, the racing tyres are going to set you back 15,000 credits, a lot of money. Racing turbo, the Stage 3 turbo, that was another 20,000. Then you got the racing brakes, the soft suspension, the sport catalytic converter, and the sport exhaust, and all of that comes to 73,800. It's not as quick. It is not as quick as the racing version. It's almost 3 seconds. The racing version does a 119.2, whereas this will do a 122.2. Now, I should point out that it would probably go a little bit faster than that 122. I would imagine I could drive it into the low 21s fairly easily. However, the rolling is a real issue. It is a massive issue with this car. On 3 occasions, I was on a fast lap and I rolled at different points. That wasn't particularly fun. I mean, again, this hasn't got the brakes. It hasn't quite got the grip through some of the high-speed corners of the racing version. I think it does have a little bit more top speed, but it's not a massive amount. As I said, we were running quite low on money for this one. It's the ability of this car to roll that causes problems. I don't know why. This car is basically the same vehicle as the race version. Okay, it's probably slightly heavier, as again we rolled on the same corner. I did roll at another point as well, and I couldn't find it on the replay quite when I rolled. But yeah, I couldn't get it turned around either. It's just not as good. It's just not as good through the corners. It can't carry as much speed. Top speed wise is not too bad on this. It's actually a nice car to drive, considering this thing is front wheel drive. It's not a bad car to drive, but it's not going to be quicker than the racing version. It's just not good enough through the corners. Up next, this was sort of more of an experiment than a serious attempt, because I really didn't know what would happen. I knew that the Megans were going to, or the road version was going to struggle, because this Megane trophy car, not only is it very cheap at 100,000 credits, it's also got a completely different driveline and drivetrain to the road-going version. The trophy car is mid-engine rear-wheel drive, whereas the road version is front-engine front-wheel drive. Yeah, there's a pretty big advantage to the trophy car just in its driveline layout when it comes to racing. However, I was going to give it a go, see what happened. Yeah, just sort of for an experiment. The Megane trophy car is a car that I really like in games. God, when was it? Way back when I first sort of got R Factor. Me and Daniel were doing racing on there with Megane trophy cars, and they are absolutely excellent. And on Gran Turismo, they are also absolutely, they're just fantastic cars to drive for not very much money. 100,000 credits is not a lot to pay for how quick this vehicle is. It's phenomenally fast. Yeah, it's nice. It's easy to drive as well for a rear-wheel drive car. It can be it's a bit weird. Like, you're not likely to slide this car. You're not likely to power slide this vehicle. However, you are likely to have it become very, very twitchy on you. Like, you can probably catch it. You can see there how much it's moving around. Not helped by the fact that this is a very bumpy, very hilly track, and this car is probably running very stiff racing suspension. However, yeah, it can do that. It can just snap on you. Like, it's not going to slide power slidey style. It's just going to kind of snap, and if you get it a bit wrong, you might find it in a wall. Other than that, though, it is a really very excellent car to drive. The road-going version, as I said, I thought was always going to struggle. The car itself costs 38,500 credits, and that doesn't leave us much money. Well, it leaves us a bit of money, but considering the thing that we are up against, it doesn't really leave us as much money for kind of upgrades. I mean, you're going to put the racing hard tyres on again. That's on the 16,500 credits. We got the 6-speed gearbox going in this car again, trying to shorten the gear ratios, and we're going to have more rolling problems. I don't know. I mean, we saw the trophy car get a bit on sort of 2 wheels through that section, and it was kind of a little bit scary when I was on board with that car, but I've never had any fears of the trophy car rolling over here, whereas this one, I think that was the first time I tried to take that corner, it just flopped over. I don't know why. It shouldn't particularly. This has got racing suspension on the car. I don't know if it's a similar thing to a Forza, whereas when you put racing suspension and racing tyres, if the grip makes the cars roll. I say Forza, I mean Forza fullback when we did Will It Roll. Maybe that's something that happens on Gran Turismo now. It never used to on 5 anyway. So yeah, the curbs, I have to be a little bit careful of the curbs. Other parts wise, it's got brake, it's got the stage 3 turbo again, sport catalytic converter, sport exhaust. The total cost of the car coming to 99,150. Lap time wise, Megane Trophy did a 117.4, whereas the road car with all of its upgrades did a 121.8. Yeah, the trophy car is a hell of a lot quicker. Not particularly surprised on that front though. As far as the actual this actual road car version goes, while it's kicking up a lot of smoke, I didn't realise how much smoke that was kicking up. This was a really nice car to drive. This was probably better to drive than the Integra. I liked this car. Overall, lap time wise, I think the Integra, if I'd got a clean lap together, may have been a little bit faster. But I just enjoyed driving them again. I was trying to push it. I was trying to get quicker lap times, and I may have run a bit wide on the dirt there. But yeah, Megane was a nice car to drive, but it was never going to be as quick as the trophy version. And our final sort of competition is with a Corvette Z06. I think it's an LM race car, was what they call it. Now, this one was going to be an interesting one. The car, this race car costs 264,500 credits. By far the most expensive race car here. However, the road version costs quite a lot of money as well. This is a fast car. This is a very fast. I always knew this was going to be a very quick car, and it is good fun to drive. I enjoyed driving this vehicle. I have a monumental accident with a pit wall. That is probably one of the biggest sort of accidents I've had in like a simulation racing game. That is a really, really nasty accident. Of course, you don't really see the damage on Gran Turismo. If this had been on beam, that would have just destroyed everything on my car. There's some poor pit lane designing going on there. However, that was fairly early on. I just carried on after getting out of the pit lane. It's all fine. We're doing sort of an odd wheelie with this Corvette over the bumps. This is a fast car. It is a nice car to drive. It's fairly easy to drive, despite the fact that it's rear-wheel drive. Will have a lot of power. I was quite surprised how easy this thing was to drive. I mean, you could get it out of shape a little bit, but it didn't really want to. Didn't really want to be sliding. Didn't want to be out of shape. And yeah, it was a lovely car to drive. Has excellent acceleration, excellent top speed, as you would expect. Carries incredible speed through these corners. You've got to be a bit careful. You've got to be a bit careful putting the power down on some of the very, very high speed corners. Again, much like you see with the Megane, it will have this kind of wiggle. Rather than sort of just spinning the wheels, it will just kind of do this sort of wiggle, this shimmy, and that can be a bit of a problem. I ran wide a few times through there. Again, I was just sort of selecting random points in the replays to film from. and like these ones where I'm going on the grass won't have been the actual fastest lap. But yeah, it was an interesting car to drive, the Corvette. I did enjoy it. And the lap time I got out of the race car was a 1:11.010. Now, when it came to the road car, I had a lot of money to spend on upgrading. The road car itself cost sort of 94,000 credits, and I was expecting it to be pretty damn quick. I wasn't expecting it to go airborne. So this was a new experience. We saw the racing Corvette would occasionally lift the front of the car off the ground. Because the road version, I had so much money, it's an awful lot more powerful and an awful lot faster in a straight line. This thing will actually fly over, I think there's 2 sort of jumps that this thing will get properly airborne on. And I wasn't expecting that. It was a bit scary coming into the first corner with all of your wheels off the ground, and when you land everything's locked up and I couldn't get it stopped. Yeah, this thing is mighty fast in a straight line. Very fast accelerating, a little bit twitchy, and it's not really surprising. I think it has 870 horsepower in this. It is phenomenally powerful. And again, we've still got this little bit of twitchiness going on. I put a rear wing on in the hope that it would give it some downforce. Didn't really do very much. Rolling was another issue. Unfortunately, the replay cameras decided not to show very much of it. But yes, I managed to roll the Corvette. That was I don't know how the rolling thing is worked. This car should not roll easily. It's a sports car, supercar, sort of super muscle car. I think that's the category we put them in now. Yeah, it shouldn't really roll. It's low to the ground. It's very wide, but it will roll. So I was having to stay off the curbs. But that was the least of my worries, really, with this car. Just keeping the thing on the road was a bit tricky. Like that was just a tiny sort of little mistake, little misjudgment at very high speeds. I didn't try to cut the grass there. I just hit the grass a little bit by accident, and that just threw the car into the wall. The reason why I'm reversing up here is so that I can get a fast run onto the straight, so it doesn't screw up my next lap. I hope that makes sense what I said. You'll know if you're doing hot lapping what I mean. This car is so tricky to drive. It's kind of fun. It's kind of exciting. I like this vehicle that I've built. It's incredible. Yeah, it's exciting to drive because it's so scary. It is not a sensible race car. I would not want to race this in a racing series. It looks so spectacular from that shot. We're in the air, we land, there's smoke and the car goes around the corner, fine. It does. It looks absolutely spectacular. I was ending up taking the jump on that section there. I could just land it, and provided I took the jump at the right angle, I could land it and carry on. So yeah, I was planning jumps with this car. It was great. It was fun to drive. It's just not particularly easy to drive. The upgrade wise on this car, it's got the soft racing suspension again, racing brakes, full weight reduction, stage 3 engine. It's got the 6-speed gearbox. It's got the wing on the back. I wanted the downforce. I don't really know how much it did. The upgraded supercharger, racing exhaust, racing cat. It's got carbon bonnet, me trying to sort of get some weight off the thing to make it handle a bit better. And it has got I think it's a racing manifold or whatever. The total cost of the vehicle, 262,000 credits. So it's only a couple of thousand credits less than the racing version. Lap time wise, this road going car was a 112.5 and the race car was a 111.0. It also had racing tyres. I think I forgot to say them on that list of stuff. So yeah, it's a second and a half slower. We're in the air again, and I'm not surprised. It is like this thing is stupid fast in a straight line. I think it was doing 175 miles an hour when it hit that jump for the first corner, whereas the racing version was a bit less. I'm not entirely sure. And I can just straight line this thing will destroy the racing version. However, it just can't carry the speed through the corners. Probably a combination of lack of downforce, and this is probably heavier. Even with all the weight reduction I tried to do on it, this is probably heavier than the racing version. Downforce, the other cars, I don't know how much the Megane Trophy relies on downforce, but the other cars aren't sort of massive downforce vehicles, whereas I suspect the Corvette race car relies quite, well, I wouldn't say quite heavily, but it relies more extensively on downforce than the other racing vehicles, and that's probably one of the reasons, well, I'm fairly sure that's one of the reasons, and it's something I can't really change on this sort of standard road car. And yeah, it's never quite going to be as quick as the race car. It is incredibly exciting. So there we go. The conclusion we can draw from this, on most occasions, if the race cars starts on racing tyres, or if you're trying to keep it at the same sort of tyres, you are not going to be able to upgrade a road car to be as fast as the racing version. Certainly not for the money. On the odd occasion where you can, I still wouldn't advise it. I really wouldn't recommend it, because if you're doing a race, if you're doing sort of more than 20 laps, over the course of the 20 laps, you'll probably be going quicker with the racing car, because you will be able to be more consistent. You will make less mistakes, because the highly modified road cars are going to be harder to drive. All of them were harder to drive than their racing counterparts. The likes of the Corvette, that was just terrifying. The Golf wasn't. The Golf was only faster because it had more straight line speed. The Integra and the Megane were actually quite nice cars to drive. They just didn't have the cornering speed to keep up with their racing counterparts. So yes, if you're looking at buying a racing car for a series, go for the properly purpose-built racing vehicle. Don't try and build your own, because the properly built purpose car will be better, pretty much. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.